My son told me I was too old to deserve birthday gifts. 1 month later, he found out I left everything to his sister and he literally collapsed on my front porch. I'm standing in my living room right now, holding the legal document that changed everything. My name is Robert Harrison, but everyone calls me Bob. I'm 67 years old, and up until 5 weeks ago I thought I knew my children. I thought I had raised them right. I was wrong about one of them, and that mistake almost cost me everything. Let me tell you about my family, because you need to understand who these people are to believe what happened next. I have 2 children. My son Marcus is 32, works in marketing for some big company downtown, drives a BMW, lives in a house twice the size of mine. He's married to Jessica, and they have twin boys, Tyler and Trevor, who are 8 years old. Marcus makes good money, probably more than I ever did in construction, but somehow he's always complaining about being broke. Then there's my daughter Sarah. She's 29, teaches 2nd grade at Lincoln Elementary, and she's raising her 6-year-old son Danny all by herself after her ex-husband walked out 3 years ago. Sarah lives paycheck to paycheck in a small apartment across town, but she's the one who calls me twice a week just to check in. She's the one who remembers to bring Danny over so I can teach him how to use tools in my garage. She's the one who still hugs me like she did when she was little. My wife Margaret passed away 3 years ago from cancer. 42 years of marriage, gone in 8 months of hospital visits and treatments that bankrupted our savings. Margaret was the heart of our family, the one who made sure everyone stayed connected. After she died, I wondered if my kids would still need their old man around, or if they were just being polite, waiting for the right time to drift away. I live alone now in the same house where I raised Marcus and Sarah. It's a modest 3-bedroom ranch on Maple Street in suburban Columbus, Ohio. Nothing fancy, but I own it outright. Margaret and I paid off the mortgage 10 years ago. The house is worth about $300,000 now, according to the real estate websites. I've also got about $150,000 in savings, what's left after Margaret's medical bills, plus a life insurance policy worth $200,000 that I kept paying even though Margaret's gone. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable. More importantly, I always thought my kids loved me for who I am, not what I have. I was about to find out how wrong I was about one of them. The story I'm about to tell you started on my birthday, 5 weeks ago. It was supposed to be a simple family dinner, just me and my 2 kids, maybe the grandkids if Marcus brought them. I had cleaned the whole house, bought groceries, even put fresh flowers on the kitchen table, because that's what Margaret always did for special occasions. I should mention my neighbor Linda Martinez. She's been living next door for 15 years, became close friends with Margaret and me, especially after Margaret got sick. Linda's the one who brings me casseroles when I forget to eat and checks on me when I don't pick up my mail for a couple days. She's also the one who witnessed what happened the night everything fell apart, and she's the one who held my arm steady when I had to make the hardest decision of my life. That birthday dinner changed everything. One comment from Marcus, one moment of cruelty disguised as a joke, and I saw my son's true character for the first time. It wasn't pretty. In fact, it was so ugly that I spent the entire night staring at the ceiling, wondering how I had failed as a father. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. "Patricia," I said, "I need to change my will immediately." She asked me if I was sure about what I was planning. I told her I had never been more certain of anything in my life. What happened next would tear my family apart, but it would also show me who my children really are when the stakes are highest. Marcus collapsed on my front porch when he found out what I had done. But before I tell you about that, you need to understand exactly what led to that moment, because the devil, as they say, is in the details. Life after Margaret has been like learning to breathe underwater. Everything familiar became foreign overnight. The house feels too big and too quiet. I wake up every morning and for just a split second, I forget she's gone. I reach across the bed expecting to find her warm body, but there's nothing but cold sheets and the echo of 42 years of good mornings that will never come again. The loneliness hits hardest in the evenings. Margaret and I used to sit on the front porch after dinner, watching the neighborhood kids ride their bikes, talking about our day, planning weekend projects. Now I sit there alone, watching Linda Martinez water her garden, and I wonder if this is all that's left for me. Just waiting. But I'm not completely alone. I still have my children, or so I thought. Marcus visits maybe twice a month, usually when he needs something. Last time, he borrowed $2,000 to fix his roof, promising to pay me back within a month. That was 4 months ago. When I gently mentioned it during our last phone call, he got defensive and said, "Dad, I'm dealing with a lot right now. Can't you just be patient?" Patient. I've been patient my whole life. Sarah is different. She calls me every Tuesday and Friday evening right after she puts Danny to bed. "Just checking on you, Dad," she always says, like it's the most natural thing in the world. Last month, her car broke down, and even though I knew she needed money for repairs, she never asked. Instead, she took 3 buses to bring Danny over for his usual Saturday visit because she didn't want to disappoint him. That's when I knew I had raised at least one child. Right. My birthday was coming up March 15th. It would be my 67th, and the 4th one without Margaret. The first 3 were disasters. Marcus forgot completely the first year, remembered at the last minute the second year and sent a generic card, and last year he showed up for 20 minutes with a gas station gift card. Sarah has tried to make each one special, but I could see the strain in her eyes trying to fill the hole that Margaret left behind. This year felt different, though. I found myself actually looking forward to it, maybe because I was tired of feeling sorry for myself. I decided to take charge, to create the kind of birthday celebration Margaret would have wanted for me. I started dropping hints 3 weeks early. "You know, your mother always made such a fuss about birthdays," I told Marcus during one of his brief visits. "She'd spend days planning, making sure everything was perfect." "Yeah, Mom was great at that stuff," he replied, not looking up from his phone. I tried with Sarah too, but more subtly. "Danny's birthday is coming up in May," I said during one of our Tuesday calls. "I remember when you and Marcus were his age, how excited you'd get planning parties." "I love birthdays," Sarah said. "They're chances to show people how much they matter." The week before my birthday, I went into full preparation mode. I scrubbed the house from top to bottom, something I hadn't done since Margaret died. I washed windows, vacuumed carpets, even organized the junk drawer in the kitchen. I went grocery shopping and bought all the ingredients for Margaret's famous pot roast, the one she used to make for every family celebration. I called Marcus on the Monday before my birthday. "Hey son, just wondering if you're free Saturday evening. Thought maybe we could have dinner here at the house. This Saturday? Let me check with Jessica." I heard him talking to his wife in the background. "Yeah, we can probably stop by for a bit. The twins have soccer practice until 5, so maybe around 6. When I called Sarah, she didn't even let me finish the question. "Of course, Dad. Danny and I wouldn't miss it. Can I bring anything? Maybe some of those dinner rolls you like?" Friday night, I set the dining room table with Margaret's good china, the set we only used for special occasions. I polished the silverware until it gleamed. I even drove to the florist and bought fresh daffodils, Margaret's favorite spring flowers, and arranged them in her crystal vase. As I stood back and looked at the table, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Maybe this birthday would be different. Maybe my children would see how much this meant to me. Maybe, for one evening, this house would feel like a home again, instead of a museum of memories. I had no idea I was setting the stage for the most devastating night of my life. Saturday arrived with the kind of perfect March weather that makes you believe winter might actually end. I spent the morning cooking Margaret's pot roast, filling the house with the smell of home and memories. By 5:30, everything was ready. The table looked beautiful, the food was warming in the oven, and I'd changed into the blue button-down shirt Margaret always said brought out my eyes. Sarah arrived first, right at 6, with Danny bouncing beside her carrying a small wrapped package. "Happy birthday, Grandpa!" Danny shouted, launching himself into my arms. Sarah had baked chocolate chip cookies, my favorite, and handed me a handmade card with a photo of the three of us from last Christmas. "Dad, you went all out," Sarah said, looking around the dining room with genuine appreciation. "Mom would love seeing you use her china." We were talking in the kitchen when Marcus finally showed up at 6:45, still wearing his gym clothes and checking his phone. No gift, not even a card. Jessica wasn't with him. "Where are Tyler and Trevor?" I asked, trying to hide my disappointment. "Soccer ran late, then Jessica had to take them to some birthday party," Marcus said, not looking up from his phone. "Sorry, Dad, you know how crazy weekends get with kids." I knew how crazy weekends got with kids. I had raised 2 of them, but Margaret and I still made family time sacred. Dinner started awkwardly. Danny chattered about school while Sarah asked me about my week, but Marcus kept sighing and checking his phone every few minutes. Finally, Sarah snapped. "Marcus, can you put that away for 1 hour? It's Dad's birthday." Sorry, work stuff," he said, but I noticed he just flipped it face down instead of putting it away. The conversation limped along. I told them about Linda's new garden project. Sarah shared stories about her students, but Marcus contributed nothing except occasional grunts and more phone checking. When I brought out the birthday cake Sarah had brought, I realized I was waiting for something that wasn't going to happen. There were no gifts on the table. No wrapped packages, no cards from Marcus, nothing. I must have looked around too obviously because Marcus noticed. "What are you looking for, Dad?" My face burned with embarrassment. Here I was, almost 70 years old, looking around like a disappointed child on Christmas morning. Nothing. I was just, "Oh," Marcus said, and actually laughed. "You're looking for presents? Dad, seriously? You don't need a gift at your age. Your age is your present. Most guys your age are dead already." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. The room went completely silent, except for the ticking of Margaret's grandfather clock in the corner. Danny stopped eating his cake and looked around, sensing something was wrong but not understanding what. "Marcus," Sarah's voice was sharp with disbelief. "That's horrible. How can you say that to Dad?" But Marcus wasn't done. He was actually grinning now, like he'd made some brilliant joke. "What? I'm being practical here. He's got everything he needs. What's he going to do with more stuff? He should be grateful he made it to 67. That's a gift right there." I felt like I couldn't breathe. This was my son, the boy I had taught to ride a bike, helped with homework, walked down the aisle at his wedding. This was how he saw me. Not as his father who deserved love and respect, but as some old man who should be grateful just to be breathing. "Marcus, stop it right now," Sarah said, her voice shaking with anger. "Dad matters. His feelings matter. You're being cruel." "I'm being realistic," Marcus shot back. "He's old, Sarah. Old people don't need birthday presents. They need to accept reality." I pushed back from the table slowly. My hands were trembling, and I didn't trust my voice. "Excuse me," I managed to say, and walked into the kitchen. I stood at the sink, gripping the counter, trying not to cry in front of my grandson. Through the doorway, I could hear Sarah's voice, low and furious. "How dare you talk to him like that? He's our father, not some stranger you can dismiss." "Oh, come on, you're being dramatic," Marcus replied. "It was a joke." But it wasn't a joke. I could hear it in his voice, see it in his eyes. This was what my son really thought of me. I was already dead to him, just a burden taking up space, valuable only for whatever I might leave behind when I finally had the courtesy to stop breathing. That's when everything changed. I stayed in that kitchen for what felt like an eternity, listening to Sarah's voice getting more heated and Marcus's getting more defensive. Finally, I heard his chair scrape against the floor. "You know what? I don't need this drama," Marcus announced. "I've got emails to answer anyway." "Happy birthday, Dad," he called toward the kitchen, his voice dripping with fake cheerfulness. The front door slammed 30 seconds later. Sarah found me still gripping the sink counter. She didn't say anything at first, just put her hand on my shoulder. Danny appeared in the doorway, chocolate cake still smeared around his mouth. "Grandpa, why did Uncle Marcus make you sad?" he asked with that devastating honesty that only 6-year-olds possess. I knelt down to Danny's level, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "Sometimes grown-ups say things they don't mean, buddy. It's okay." But it wasn't okay, and we all knew it. After Sarah and Danny left, I sat alone in my dining room, staring at the beautiful table I had set with such hope just hours earlier. Margaret's china looked ridiculous now, like I had been playing dress-up in someone else's life. The daffodils were already wilting. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Marcus's voice. "Most guys your age are dead already." The words played on repeat like a broken record. I kept thinking about other things he'd said over the past few months, comments I had dismissed or made excuses for. Like when I mentioned feeling tired after working in the yard and he said, "Dad, maybe it's time to hire someone. You're not 20 anymore." Not concern for my well-being, but impatience with my limitations. Or when I talked about maybe taking a cruise, something Margaret and I always planned to do, and he said, "That's a lot of money for someone on a fixed income." As if my dreams had an expiration date. Or last Christmas when I gave each of the twins a $50 savings bond, and Marcus rolled his eyes. "Dad, they're 8. Just give them cash or gift cards. This old-fashioned stuff doesn't make sense anymore." Old-fashioned, like me. At 3 in the morning, I got out of bed and walked to my home office. I pulled out the metal filing cabinet where Margaret and I kept all our important documents. Birth certificates, marriage license, insurance policies, and there at the bottom, in a manila envelope marked "Will" in Margaret's careful handwriting, was the document that laid out my final wishes. I spread it out on the desk and read through it by the light of my desk lamp. It was straightforward, written 5 years ago when Margaret was first diagnosed. Everything split equally between Marcus and Sarah. The house, the savings account, the life insurance policy, all divided 50-50. Standard stuff. But as I read it, Marcus's voice echoed in my head again. "Your age is your present." If that's how he really saw me, if I was just a countdown clock ticking toward his inheritance, then maybe it was time to stop the clock entirely. I sat there until sunrise, thinking about the kind of man I had raised. Sarah worked 2 jobs to make ends meet as a single mother, never complained, never asked for help even when she desperately needed it. She called me because she wanted to hear my voice, not because she wanted something from me. Marcus made twice what Sarah earned, drove a car worth more than she made in a year, lived in a house 3 times the size of hers, and still found reasons to borrow money from his widowed father. He saw me as an inconvenience who should be grateful for each day, a burden who had outlived his usefulness. The sun came up slowly that Sunday morning, painting my office walls gold. I made my decision as I watched the light creep across Margaret's photo on my desk. She was smiling in that picture taken at Sarah's college graduation. She would understand what I was about to do. At 9 o'clock sharp, I called Patricia Wells, my attorney. She had handled our family's legal affairs for 15 years, drafted our original wills, helped us navigate Margaret's medical directives. "Patricia, it's Bob Harrison. I'm sorry to call on a Sunday, but I need to make some changes to my will immediately." There was a pause. "Bob, is everything all right? Are you feeling okay?" "I'm feeling clearer than I have in months," I told her. "Can we meet tomorrow morning?" "This can't wait." "Of course. My office, 10 o'clock. I'll be there." I hung up the phone and looked at my current will one more time. Then I folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. By tomorrow night, everything would be different. Monday morning, I sat in Patricia Wells' office and signed the new will. Everything to Sarah. Nothing to Marcus except a sealed letter I had written explaining exactly why. Patricia tried to talk me out of it, suggested maybe I was acting too hastily, but I'd never been more certain of anything in my life. "Bob, family disputes can be resolved," she said gently. "Maybe give this some time." "Patricia, this isn't a dispute. This is a revelation," I told her. "I finally see my son clearly, and I don't like what I see." For the next month, I carried the secret like a weight in my chest. I went about my normal routine, had my regular phone calls with Sarah, even endured 2 brief visits from Marcus where he acted like nothing had happened. He never apologized for the birthday comment. Never even acknowledged it. Then, on a Tuesday morning in April, everything changed again. I was working in my garden, planting the tomatoes Margaret and I used to grow together, when the chest pain hit. Sharp, crushing, like someone had wrapped a steel band around my ribs and was tightening it. I dropped my trowel and stumbled toward the house, but I didn't make it. Linda Martinez found me 20 minutes later, collapsed on my front walkway. The ambulance, the hospital, the tests. Minor heart attack, they said. Not life-threatening, but a warning. I spent 3 days in the cardiac unit thinking about mortality, about time, about the conversations I needed to have before there were no more chances to have them. When I got home, I knew what I had to do. I called both of my children and asked them to come over Saturday afternoon. "We need to discuss some family business," I told them. "Important stuff about the future." Sarah arrived worried, carrying a casserole and fussing over me like I was made of glass. "Dad, you scared me so much. Promise me you'll take it easy." Marcus showed up 15 minutes late, looking annoyed. "Dad, I hope this isn't going to take long. I've got a client dinner tonight." We sat in the living room, the same room where I had stood holding my new will just weeks earlier. I had rehearsed this moment, but now that it was here, my heart was pounding harder than it had during the attack. "I want to talk to you both about my will," I began. Marcus perked up immediately. "Is this because of the heart attack? Do you need help getting your affairs in order?" The eagerness in his voice made my stomach turn. Sarah just looked concerned, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "Actually, I've already taken care of everything," I said. "I updated my will last month." "That's good, Dad," Sarah said. "Planning ahead is smart." Marcus nodded, already looking bored again, probably calculating his inheritance in his head. "Marcus," I said, looking directly at him, "do you remember what you said to me on my birthday?" His face went blank. "What do you mean?" "About my age being my present. About men my age being dead already." I watched the color drain from his face as the memory hit him. "Dad, I was joking around. You know, I didn't mean anything by it." "Actually, I think you meant every word," I said calmly. "And you were right about something. At my age, I shouldn't burden my children with unrealistic expectations." I pulled out the copies of my new will from the folder beside my chair. "So I've removed that burden from you entirely." "What are you talking about?" Marcus asked, but there was fear creeping into his voice now. "Sarah," I said, handing her the documents, "you're now the sole beneficiary of everything. The house, the savings account, the life insurance policy, all of it." Sarah's mouth fell open. "Dad, what?" Marcus grabbed the papers from her hands, his eyes scanning frantically. "This can't be real. Dad, you can't be serious." $650,000 total, I said quietly. "That's what you called worthless. That's what you said an old man like me doesn't deserve to give as gifts." Marcus's face went white as a sheet. He started hyperventilating, actually gasping for air. "Dad, please, I have kids. I have debts. You can't do this to me." "I'm not doing anything to you," I replied. "I'm giving you exactly what you said I should give you. Nothing. You told me my age was my present. Well, now your age can be your inheritance. You're young and capable. Figure it out. Marcus literally collapsed back into the armchair, the papers scattered on the floor around him. For a moment, I thought he might be having his own heart attack. "This isn't happening," he whispered. "This can't be happening." But it was happening, and for the first time in months I felt completely at peace. The silence in my living room after Marcus's breakdown was deafening. Sarah sat frozen, still holding pieces of the will, while Marcus rocked back and forth in the armchair like a child having a tantrum. "Dad, please," Marcus finally managed between gasps. "I'll do anything. I'll apologize. I'll pay you back the money I borrowed. Just, please, don't do this." But it was too late for apologies. The damage was done, and more importantly, I had seen his true character. This wasn't grief or shock I was watching. This was a man realizing his retirement plan had just evaporated. Sarah was the first to find her voice. "Dad, I can't accept this. Not if it means losing my brother." "You're not losing anything, sweetheart," I told her gently. "You're gaining what you've always deserved. Marcus is losing something he never valued in the first place." Marcus jumped up from the chair, papers flying everywhere. "This is insane! You're punishing me for one stupid comment. Dad, I love you. You know I love you." "Do you?" I asked quietly. "Because love isn't what I've been feeling from you, son. Obligation, maybe, impatience, definitely. But love, I haven't felt that in a long time." The next few weeks were a nightmare. Marcus called every single day, sometimes multiple times. He sent flowers, cards, even showed up with Tyler and Trevor one afternoon, using his own children as emotional weapons. "Grandpa, Daddy says you're mad at him," 8-year-old Tyler said, breaking my heart. "Are you mad at us too?" That was the lowest point. Using those innocent boys to manipulate me. I knelt down to their level and promised them that my feelings for them would never change. But I also knew this was exactly the kind of man Marcus had become. The phone calls escalated. Marcus would call crying, then angry, then threatening. "Dad, I'll contest this will. No court will uphold this. You're obviously not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years," I told him, during what would be our final phone conversation. "And my lawyer assures me this will is ironclad." After 2 months of harassment, Marcus stopped calling altogether. But the silence wasn't peaceful. Linda Martinez told me she saw him driving by the house at odd hours, and Sarah mentioned that Marcus had been calling her, trying to convince her to refuse the inheritance. "He actually suggested I was manipulating you," Sarah told me one evening. "He said I was taking advantage of your grief over Mom." That's when I knew I had made the right decision. Even faced with the consequences of his own actions, Marcus couldn't accept responsibility. It had to be someone else's fault. I was senile. Sarah was manipulative. Anyone but the man who told his father he should be grateful just to be breathing. The real test came 6 months later, on what would have been Margaret's 70th birthday. Sarah and Danny came over to visit her grave with me, something we'd been doing together since she passed. As we were leaving the cemetery, Marcus was waiting by my car. He looked terrible, thinner, older, desperate. "Dad, please, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I agreed to talk. Sarah took Danny to the playground nearby, giving us privacy I probably didn't deserve. "I've been seeing a therapist," Marcus said. "She helped me understand how selfish I've been, how much I hurt you." For a moment I felt hope. Maybe this was real, maybe my son had finally learned something. "I realize now that I took you for granted," he continued, "and I'm willing to work on our relationship, but Dad, I need you to understand something. I've got serious financial problems. I counted on that inheritance. If you could just give me a portion, maybe just enough to—" And there it was. Even his apology was a sales pitch. "Marcus," I said, cutting him off, "you just proved you learned nothing." I walked away and never looked back. Today, a year later, my life is better than it's been since Margaret died. Sarah used part of her inheritance to help me renovate the house, adding safety features so I can age in place. She and Danny come over every Sunday for dinner. We've started new traditions, healthier ones. Marcus sends a Christmas card each year, always with a return address I don't recognize. I heard through family friends that he and Jessica divorced, that he lost the house, that he's struggling. Part of me feels sad about that. He's still my son. But I learned something important at 67 years old. It's never too late to teach people how to treat you, even if the lesson costs them everything. Some gifts are worth giving, even when they hurt. Bob sits in his comfortable chair, the same one where this whole story began, but now there's peace in his eyes instead of pain. Looking back, I don't regret my decision, not for a second. Some people might think I was too harsh, that family should forgive anything. But here's what I learned. Love without respect isn't really love at all. It's just obligation dressed up in pretty words. Marcus taught me that my worth wasn't tied to what I could give him. Sarah taught me that real love doesn't come with conditions or expiration dates. And I taught myself that it's never too late to stand up for your own dignity. If you're watching this and you recognize yourself in Marcus, there's still time to change. Call your parents, your grandparents, the people who love you. Tell them they matter while they're here to hear it. Don't wait until you're reading a will to realize what you've lost. And if you see yourself in my story, if you're being taken for granted or treated like you don't matter, remember this: you have more power than you think. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is teach people the consequences of their actions. Your worth isn't measured by how convenient you are to others. It's not determined by your age or what you can provide. You matter because you're here, because you've lived, because you've loved, and because you deserve respect. That's my story. That's what happened when my son told me I was too old for birthday gifts. Sometimes the most powerful gift you can give someone is showing them exactly what they're about to lose. What do you think? Did I do the right thing? Have you ever had to make a similar choice with family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story touched you, if it made you think about your own relationships differently, please hit that like button. It really helps more people find these stories. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell for more real-life stories like this one. Every week, I share stories about family, forgiveness, and finding your strength when life gets complicated. Thanks for listening, and remember, you're never too old to teach people how to treat you.